Hello, everybody. We are back with another episode of Life in Law. And tonight we have a special guest with us, Scott Hampton. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
My pleasure. And so, can you just start off by just telling our listeners just a little bit about yourself?
Yes. So like she said, my name is Scott Hampton. I am a foster care to prison pipeline expert. I spent 13 years in foster care and 16 years in prison. Um, I was adopted by well, I was placed in foster care at birth, and the uh, uh, agency couldn't find anyone for me to live with. So I bounced around from foster home to foster home until the age of 5. I was reunified with my mother, and she basically lost uh, custody at that time because her husband abused me, put me in the ICU. After the removal, I was placed in more foster homes until the age of 7. At the age of 7, I was reunified with my mother again, and they had worked out a case plan to not have the husband back in the life of the children and of my mother. So I went back, and here he was. He comes back and abuses me again, puts me right back in the ICU. So those obviously are traumatic stories that I remember to this day, and it's kind of hard for me to talk about, but it is what it is. It's what's made me me, and strong individual. So at the age of 7, I was finally removed permanently. Permanency took place, and uh, I went through more foster homes and residential treatment facilities. I went through Hannah Neal Center for Children on the south side of Columbus, out in Obetz, and which years later they ended up closing down because of abuse. But back then it was just all about the money, and care, I guess. But it was a nightmare in there. I was also in Franklin Village. It's another residential treatment facility run by Franklin County Children's Services, and it was also a nightmare. Um, Rampant abuse, not only from staff but from the youth that were there. And uh, Finally, I was at my last foster home, and I was told that I had a sister, an older sister, and we were put up for adoption together. And we were put on a TV show called Wednesday's Child through ABC 6 News. And so yeah, we were like little puppies in the window, and look at these cool kids, they don't even know how to read. Well, I didn't know how to read or write. I was 11 years old, and I had so much trauma, that I had bedwetting problems all the way up until I was 15. And I used to set fires, and I stopped, obviously, and it it was all based on trauma. They didn't know how to they didn't really know what it was. They thought I was just being bad. Uh, Trauma has an effect on youth that have
So let's
had those
back up. Let's
experiences.
back up a little bit. Now, growing up in Ohio, how old were
Mm.
you when the first time that you went into a foster home? How old were you?
I was at birth.
So was your mother
She
using
was
drugs?
yeah, I was born with FAS, fetal alcohol syndrome, and she was doing drugs. Yep.
And so immediately at birth, you were taken away from your mother.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so were you in different foster homes
I had
bouncing around?
I had a life book. They make like a life book, and it tells you like the families that you've lived with, and like some like some stuff that they sent you away with, I even have I don't know where it is now, but I had a tail, and it got cut off at the adopted mom and dad's house. They didn't want that. But some were like pictures of the families. Mostly were just pictures. It's like a family tree, of families that you've lived with. And when I first saw it, I was like, wow, it's a lot of families. And I guess people wonder why I'm so different nowadays, because most people are just used to one family, uncle, aunt, grandparent, stuff like that. But I was exposed to so many different types of families. Like I see people every day that remind me of someone that I've lived with, and my sense of fear kicks in sometimes, and it's it's uh it's a good thing, because I'm able to judge, not really judge, but uh know somebody without knowing them. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And so let me ask you a question. Was your father in the picture at all?
No, no, and then that comes later on in the story because I didn't end up finding my whole family. It took me 29 years, and I mean I can touch on that right now. Um, I I later on you'll understand that I was in prison and I found my family 2 years before I was released, and I got to go to my first family reunion. And the day that I found out, my sister had 4 years left to live. My baby sister, and by my mother. And the last time I saw her, it was the time I got abused by my mom's husband. I got up and got her something to drink, and he had told me to sit there and don't move. And she said Curtis because that was my real name. It was Curtis Lee Duff. She said Curtis, I'm thirsty, and that's all I hear. And I got out and I got to meet her, and then she passed on me, but at least I got to find that closure. A lot of foster youth don't get that closure. I actually wrote something on closure. It's a page, but we'll get to that maybe some other time.
So first off, I'm sorry, very sorry about your loss.
Yeah, that's okay.
And
My mom had passed. My dad had passed. He was born in 1930, and my mom was born in 57. So
oh, that's the same year my mom was born. So
so
that's they're older.
I got to see his grave in West Virginia. I got to meet my dad's side of the family, and they're pretty cool. They're pretty cool.
So, okay, so you were taken and you were put in foster care from birth. And
Yeah.
then during that whole time growing up, how much contact with your mother did you have?
Just the 2 times.
At
Just
what
the
age?
once when I was 5 and 7, that was it. Well, they had a goodbye. They had like a goodbye thing where children's services, once parental custody is terminated, they have like one last little goodbye. And it was kind of hard for me. I didn't understand it. I was a kid, but now that I'm older, I realize that like how horrible, of a process to go through even as a parent. I
Now,
can't I can't imagine.
were her parental rights terminated or did you get adopted? Why was it a buy
No, they
instead of
were
a
they were terminated. They were
they were?
terminated. Yeah, I was placed in the ICU by her husband twice.
So you had some access and then you were injured and then because of that her rights were terminated.
Yes.
And then what was your experience like, over the years growing up in foster care? Do you feel like it was
I
worse for
never
you?
had a
Did you
problem.
experience
I
abuse?
never I never had an issue with any kind of abuse in foster homes. At residential treatment facilities, yes, but not foster homes. Everybody was pretty cool. The foster parents were cool, and
And how old were you when you first went into one of these treatment facilities?
uh 7, 8.
And why did you get sent there? Were you acting up? Were you misbehaving?
Yeah, no placements. Nobody wanted me. They couldn't find anywhere, so they just put me there. It's supposed to be for bad kids or whatever, but I mean, yeah, I was setting fires and beating up foster kids, because I couldn't go. Yeah, like I said, I grew up with so many different types of rules. Like one family, I could go play in the mud, but they didn't have a cookie jar, so I was like, why? So the next family I go to, I'm not allowed to play in the mud, but they have a cookie jar too, but I have to ask. I'm like, what? Before I'm able to just pull up a stool and get as many as I want. And then I'm like, why ask? I didn't have to ask before, so I don't like you. And I get kicked out. And next family, they'd have a cookie jar, but I have to go clean my room and sweep off the back porch now. And I'm like, wait, there's no way, I'm not doing this for a cookie. And then the next home, they don't even have one. So it's just there's no set rules, in foster care. It's just now that I'm older, I'm like, okay, they were trying to teach me stuff. They were trying to teach me that I have to ask sometimes for what I want and work for what I want and be good. And some families are just like here's a silver spoon, and it I learned that, and it took me a long time to learn that, but it's it's up here now,
Yeah, like I've spoken to a lot of people who've been in foster care and said that they were abused or sexually abused and
Yeah, oh, for
molested.
sure.
And so it's
Yeah,
good that you didn't experience anything
yeah,
like that. But what
absolutely.
type of abuse did you experience once you got into these residential homes?
Um, uh, just
Was it physical? Like,
yeah,
did
physical. It was physical. Kids beating up kids, hitting them with socks and locks and
what about
soap and throwing human waste on them. I mean, it's just pick. It's just picking.
the
And
staff? Like, where's the staff abusive?
oh yeah. Well, back then it was, nurses walking around with needles on their hip, and you did something wrong, they're they're hitting you with that needle and you're waking up in the infirmary strapped to the bed. That's how Hannah was. And nowadays you do that, it's a wrap, you can't do that. But back then in the 70s and 80s, man, that's the way it was. It was a psychiatric place. It was to live in, and people lived there and came to school there. And I was at a foster home down the street. I didn't live there, but I experienced abuse there for sure. And I realized it was abuse now, and I got out, and it's the statute of limitations. You only have to 21, you know. And had I known, had I known that all of this was wrong, I would have especially my adoption, which we haven't gotten into yet. Um, I would have probably been the most paid kid in Franklin County, Ohio, Columbus. My jacket's huge and it's rampant with abuse. And chip spinning won't give me my records. And I was one of the original ones who fought for the rights of adoptees to have their records. Um, so
And
from the
so,
early 2000s,
how
the
old were
adoptees'
you?
rights, I think that's what it was.
So when you
Go
were
ahead.
adopted, how old were you?
I was 11. I was 11 years old.
And why don't you
12.
say a little bit more about that? Because I know you said initially it was like nobody wanted you. And it seems like a lot of times people want to adopt these younger kids and babies, and they don't want older kids, especially ones with histories of being bad or misbehaving and stuff like you had. So did you find it was hard to get an adopted family? And what was your experience like with that?
Um, I think what highlighted our story, my sister and I, which I just basically met. She said that we were together before, but I couldn't remember. I'm at my mom's house, and she said we got lost in a cornfield together, but I don't remember. Um, she's like 2 years older than me, almost 2 years, and we were put on a show called Wednesday's Child, and the host is Michelle Gallion, and normally she doesn't have kids at her house. So we were special, I guess. And we were at her house, and it was during Halloween, so we were carving pumpkins, And here I was with buck teeth and speaking double negatives and stuff like that, I the people that wanted to adopt only wanted a girl. They wanted a girl, but I guess Children's Services talked them into having a sibling adoption. So um, we went to meet them, and uh, they had a life book too, right? Children's Services, they script it. They say, "Hey, put together a photo album." They have one too. Get them something nice. Get them something that they want. I wanted a Teddy Ruxpin bear, but they got me some generic like thing that ended up taking apart and like because it wasn't a Teddy Ruxpin, it was like a knockoff, and I should have known right there that that was like a red flag. Like they didn't get me what I wanted, so I shouldn't have went there. So, anyways, um, uh, they've both been through a divorce, which Children's Services probably didn't look into as of why the divorces were happening. Which I think that that's a key thing that they should hone in on now. I don't even think they do it now. It's one of those unspoken things of you know okay, here you just want the kid. You guys are married. Okay, cool. They don't go into the psychological whys of the divorce. What was the reasons? But anyways, that's for another advocacy portion. So like, um, um, here it is. I didn't know how to read or write, and they're going to the Little Brown Jug at Delaware, um, in box seats with the governor, with the mayor, with all these corporate people. My adopted dad was a quality, I mean a electronical engineer and a nuclear engineer, worked for Solid State Controls. He was writing the scandal with Buck Reinhardt and the energy crisis scheme that they had going on in Columbus back in early 90s.
So you're
So
saying you didn't know how to read or write at the age of 11?
no,
Didn't you go to
no.
school? Weren't you in school?
I don't know. Hannah Neal was kind of like school or whatever, but I don't remember ever going to a school. I bounced around so much, like I didn't go to school. I would go
Terrible.
and then I would get in trouble, and then the foster family would say nope, he's gone. So I'd go to another family, and then I don't remember going to a school really except like 3 times. So, but it gets interesting though with the adopted parents, and so you're right. I didn't know how to read or write, so they basically couldn't take me around their friends, because I came from projects, to them. I came from like trash, to them. So here they are. They're kicking it with like the mayor and like people of a high influence in Columbus, and they didn't want to take me around anybody. So they basically told me that my play time was over. I had no more boy time. I played from then back, and I was not allowed to play anymore. I wasn't allowed to have friends anymore because I was so far behind. So they put me in Sylvan and had me memorizing, and I couldn't. Even when we went on vacation, I wasn't allowed to look out the window. I wasn't allowed to look out the window when we were in the car. I had to look and I had to read constantly, 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 and I didn't know how to take that. I didn't know how. And it just it was forced and forced and forced and forced on me to the point to where like I hated them for that. You know what I mean? Like because I wasn't allowed to play. They were serious. I was not allowed to have friends. I was not allowed to spend the night anywhere from like 11 to like whatever. Like they were mean as soon as we got there, and they realized that I wet the bed. They didn't know that. Children's Services didn't inform them that I wet the bed. They didn't inform them that I could possibly set their house on fire and kill them. You know what I mean? Like they wouldn't you think that that would be like a key thing to know? Like
So
hey, this kid set
so
fires. But I
let me ask you a
broke it
question.
all. Go
Let me
ahead.
ask you a question. So
Yeah.
how many times did you see these people before they adopted you?
One time. They well see they had this life book, right? And they had a house in Florida, they had a house in Colorado, they had a condo here in Columbus, and I'm like, ooh, all right. They had sailboats, and they dressed nice, and they were in newspaper articles for sailing and all this other stuff. And eventually, I got into sailing, and I'm pretty good at it. But that's besides the point. It's monetary stuff. Like I love sailing, I loved going to regattas and doing all that fun stuff. But when it came down to it, like I didn't want to be there, because of what happened. and we'll get I can get into that over here in a little right now if you want. Um, so my sister wasn't allowed to be girly at all. She wasn't allowed to wear makeup. She wasn't allowed to like be prissy. You know, and I don't know, like she wanted to, and she would always sneak makeup. And one morning, you know, Miss Hampton, she said, "Look, you're not to wear makeup." And she caught her one morning, and and beat her pretty bad in the bathroom. And I I came in there and I just drop kicked her in the face. Like I didn't know what to do. And he comes upstairs and yanks me up and takes me. They both take me into the bedroom and just beat the shit out of me, man. And I had to go back to the bathroom to get my sister. I had to get some towels. And I just I'm sorry,
It's okay.
but the bus driver was like, "What the?" You know, she flipped out. Like we're like a couple blocks from St. Anne's Hospital in Westerville, so um, she takes us down there, and my sister ends up staying at the hospital, and they take me back to the school, and when I get in there, they're taking Polaroid pictures of me, stripping me naked, and they figured I like got stabbed or something in the back with a lap board, with part of the lap board or whatever that they beat me with. But they beat me with a cutting board, and then she hit me, stabbed me with a lap board. It's got the fiberglass on top and the foam inside, so you can sit in bed and write, you know. And it was out of control that morning, and
So when that
so
happened, you're saying that when you got to school, you were
the
taken to the hospital?
Franklin County Children's Services was there. I wasn't admitted into the hospital. My sister was,
So do you think that
and
maybe the bus driver called?
well, she took us down there.
The bus driver took you right to children's
Yeah,
services
no,
and no,
to the hospital. They had to
they
take my
took,
sister to the hospital. They took my sister straight to the hospital. But
and do you remember like around what year this was?
this is a year, about a year after we got placed with them, like 92, 93. That was
Hmm.
like 12, going on 13. She was 13, going on 14, 14, something like that.
So were
And
you released from the hospital back to the adopted?
yeah, yeah. No, they back to the school. I was going to school. They
And then
released me to the school. And
you went home
the school,
after?
no, they well, so when I get there, Franklin County Children's Services was there, Sheriff's Department was there, Columbus Police, Westerville Police were there. Like there were a lot of people there. And they documented everything that had happened, and then I stayed there, and then my my math teacher came and she talked to me. Her name was Jenny McClendon, and she said, you know, she said, "I'm gonna take you home tonight, okay?" I said, "Yeah." I said, "That'll be cool." And Miss Hampton picked us up for an orthodontist appointment, and or tried to, and the police told her that she couldn't. She was never. They were never charged. Buck Reinhardt used to be the mayor, but he stopped being a mayor back in '92 to help them with their case.
And so what happened? They were never charged, and did you ever go back there?
Oh yeah. So I don't know. Children's Services came to them and said, "Hey, you know, to Jenny McClendon. Well, when my sister was released from the hospital, she went with her teacher, Miss Kelly, and it was her science teacher. So teachers took us in, and I stayed there for a little bit, and then she sat me down for a dinner. She said, Scott, she said, I had a talk with Children's Services today, and she said, I'm not going to sugarcoat anything. She said, they asked me if I wanted to adopt you, and I told them that I couldn't. And then she said, because of that, you have to leave tonight. And I said, "No, I don't want to." And, he said I didn't have a choice. So, man, so they put me in Franklin Village, and, because they couldn't find a placement for me, and, their attorney kept coming in, and he's always saying, "Hey, why would you wanna be here?" Because it's a metal frame bed or concrete bed in a mat, and you eat off of a metal tray. He's like, "Why would you wanna be here when you could go sleep on a water bed and eat out of a nice refrigerator and be in a nice neighborhood?" I s I said, "I don't know." You know? I was just a kid, I didn't know anything. And, throwing materialistic things in my face as a kid, man, is just, it's what they do today. They do the same thing today, and it's horrible. And,
So let me sort of ask
so
you. So when you
go
were
ahead.
there in that facility, did you end up where did you end up from there?
They placed me back with the concept thought it was in my best interest to return me back to my abusers,
Do you feel that maybe the fact that those people had money or influence had something to do with it?
Oh, for sure. For sure.
And so then you and your sister
It's
were
just
back
it's
there?
just really it's just really odd that, this is the year that, uh, you know, everything started happening in Columbus, and, who my adopted dad was, who he worked for, and, like, we were like I don't know. I don't even know how to explain. I don't even wanna go down that rabbit hole for real because as I sit and think about it even more, it's like we were given to them, like, handed to them for I'm still trying to wrap my head around it. I don't understand why, first of all, you would adopt 2 kids and abuse them. And second of all, um, why put me back? How did you expect me to turn out? Not having a sister anymore? Like,
So when you went back to there, your sister did not go back?
no.
Where did she go?
She went to a group home, but I didn't know at the time. And, she went to a group home named Delwood. It was in Delaware County in
And
Ohio.
then so when you went back there, did they continue to retaliate and abuse more?
They, yeah. They, they were told by Children's Service they were given a choice. They said, "Either you go and get your own psychologist or you go through one of ours." And they'd been through probably hundreds of thousands of dollars trying to get me back, trying to drop the charge, get the charges dropped, and all this other shit. So they got their own. And I used to tell Dr. John Mason, you can go to his website right now, Dr. John Mason on Broad Street in Columbus, Ohio, and look on his website. Because when I got out of prison, I held him accountable. I held him accountable. I said, "You failed me. I told you that they were still putting their hands on me and they were emotionally and physical abusive towards me, and you did nothing." And this man said over the phone, "Well, Mr. Hampton," I said, "Don't call me that." He said, "Well, it's the statute of limitations are up. How can I help you?" I said, You don't even know." He did
Well,
nothing. As a mandated reporter, he did nothing.
it's terrible. And you said, oh, like, why would somebody adopt 2 kids and then abuse them? But it's like there's a lot of people who have their biological kids that they abuse too. And so it's not just adopted families, it's regular parents too
I
that are
know.
abusing their kids. And I know it's horrible.
Mm,
And all of us have had bad childhoods and difficult times in the past. And
yep.
so let's get into
It gets
how did you
better.
end up how did you end up in jail? Let's talk about that.
So, I ran away a lot. And because I ran away, I ran with some stupid people. I you don't find anything. I wanted to find my family, but instead I found jail. I found prison, and it it's hard out there, as a kid, running the streets trying to eat. You're hungry. You want to do something. You don't want to go back. You'd rather be out here hungry than go back and be abused. So uh, what I did, I ran the streets, and I got okay. So let me go back a little bit. So they didn't put me in public school anymore because everybody knew what they had done. So they didn't have any of their corporate friends anymore either because they all knew what they had done. So now they had all the Christian friends, right? And ones that believed that, hey, I was a foster kid and that I was a liar and that I stole from them and that I disrespected them and all this other stuff. But I wasn't smart enough to like tell these people like, hey, I had a sister, do you ever wonder where she is? You're like, I wasn't in the right, like, in state of mind to know what they were even doing in the first place. But they do, their mind's fully developed. And here it is now. I'm a liar, a cheat, a thief, and all this other stuff. It's like, okay, and pray for me. I guess so. They put me in private school, and now I have to memorize Bible verses. Yeah, okay. No. I'm not doing this just to pass. I'm not doing this, and I'm not wearing your loafers with khakis and dress up shirts. I'm not doing that. I'm wearing what I want to wear. And so eventually I got expelled, and I wasn't allowed to go to the um the high school Worthington Christian the next year. So they sat me down. They said, "Hey, we're gonna put you in homeschool." I said, "No, you're not. If I'm here every day with her, yeah, you know where I'm going with this." I said, "I'm gonna her, and then when you come home, I'm gonna you. So you make the decision on what you want to do. I'm not doing homeschool. You guys took the only family member I have away from me, and I hate you for that. I will never respect you for that. I can't stand you." And this was 13, going on 14. And that much hate built up. I knew what they had done. I knew that they took the only family that I had away from me. And that hurt me so bad. It hurt me to this day. It's hurt me because me and my sister don't have that relationship that we could have had. We're distant. And does it hurt me? I'm glad that I have her in my life, but could I want that one sister that's, that I can tell everything to and like she listens to me and like doesn't have abusive boyfriends because of stuff that I tell her and all this other stuff and take care of a man that doesn't want to take care of himself and all this other stuff like yeah, of course, I want that kind of sister where we can confide. But anyways, um uh they put me in homeschool and I didn't do it. So I ran the streets. They said if you don't want to learn, you're to be out of here at 6:30 in the morning and be home at 6:30 at night. If you're not, the doors are going to be locked and you're not going to be able to get in. I said, okay, what time is it? It was like 2 something in the afternoon. He was home for lunch. I said, see you later. I walked straight out the door and I'd be gone for weeks at a time. Finally I'd come back, go sailing on the weekend, like I was on vacation or something.
So when
And
you
I
say
could take
when you say you ran the streets, were you like selling drugs? Like what were you doing?
I started to. Yeah, I started to.
And you would
Yeah.
come home at night though? You would keep going back home?
No, no. I met this guy and he he put me up in an apartment across the street from where he sold dope. And
And about
it
how old were you around this time?
going on 14.
And so
I earned his money every day. Like he paid me $250. He paid my rent and paid me $250 a day to iron his money. Ugh.
and the parents weren't like didn't care if you came home or not?
No, they made the rule. The rule was if I wasn't home at 6:30 at night, the doors are gonna be locked and I wasn't gonna be allowed in.
What if you
I
came the
remember there
next
was
day?
times in the wintertime. Huh?
What if you showed up like 3 days later between 6:30 and 6:30? They'll let you in.
Yeah, yeah.
So they just gave up on you basically,
I gave up on them.
but they still allowed you to sleep under their roof and gave you a house to come to.
Yeah, but when I was 18, I woke up to like the whole Westboro police force telling me I had to leave because I'm no longer welcome there.
So the day you turned 18, they threw you out.
Oh yeah, and I went to go to my closet, and they're like, "Did you buy any of that?" Really?
So
Okay.
the first time you end up in jail, tell me about why did you go to jail? What were the charges and how did you, what
Receiving
was your
stolen
first,
property, a stolen car to stay
and so
warm.
how old were you?
18. I
Okay,
didn't really
so
go to juvenile jail. I
you didn't go
now
to
hold on.
jail till you were
I
18.
did. I did go to jail down in Florida because it was my last vacation down there, and I was hanging out with my dude Brandon Crawford. His grandpa owned Crawford convenience stores, which later sold to Winn Dixie. But his grandpa had died, and his mom and grandma got hit by a train on the way to church, and left him with all this money. So we went partying, and hey, I had a good time. And I came back, and he was like, no, she was like, "Where are you?" And I was like, "F you, B." And he was like, "Don't talk to your mother like that." And I was like, "She's not my mother, you F and B." And he tried to pick up a metal patio chair and throw it at me, and I ducked it, and then I ducked him into that sliding glass door. And she's like, oh my God, Bill, Bill, Bill." I was 15. You know what I mean? I wasn't standing up to it. I stood up to his shit, man. Excuse my language, but you want to hit me, bro? All right. That's when it all started with them. Like
So with
they
that,
tr-
you did how long in jail?
until they left to go back to Ohio.
So
I
what
was
was it
in
like?
I was in yeah, I was in detention probably like 2-3 weeks, something like that.
All right, and then after that, when was your first real jail time and how long?
18. No, I went to a couple DH's detention home down in Columbus a couple times. I never went to DYS, which is the juvenile prison here in Ohio, which is ran by Mike DeWine and Ohio Start.
So at
Those
18,
two
at 18, what were you charged with and how long did you do? What was your sentence?
like 18 or 19 receiving stolen property. I had two receiving stolen properties. The first one was to stay warm. And then the second one was a dope fiend rental. I rented a Benz, and he reported it stolen or whatever within hours. It's just typical stuff. And then by 24 I had caught a RICO, and I did from 24 to 38, or yeah, 24 to 30, yeah, 24 to 38 in prison.
So
I
for
got
that
out on
sto-
my 38 for
so for that stolen property charge, how long did you do?
a year. They gave me the max. They gave me the max on every case, but
What
the
was the
but the
max?
RICO.
A year?
Uh, 12 months, I think.
So you did a
18 months,
year,
something like
you did a year, then you got
that. 18
out,
months.
and then
Yeah.
the RICO charge was for what?
The
What
RICO
was the
charge was for a slew of stuff. For RICO, it's everything combined. Sorry, for RICO, it's everything combined. So it doesn't matter if it's drug trafficking, human trafficking, robberies, kidnappings, all of it. Like it all comes into organized
and so
crime.
what were they claiming that you were doing?
Kidnapping, robbing, doing dumb shit.
And so did you have a trial?
I did, and I
And
lost.
you had an
Well,
attorney?
they got me. I beat a case in '99, and it was for illegal search and seizure, and they they wanted me ever since then. They
So
wanted
for
me ever
this
since then.
so for this RICO case, you had an attorney represent you
Yeah, yeah,
and you lost that
yeah.
trial, and what was your sentence?
14 years, mandatory
So
14 years.
you did the whole 14 years, no early release?
No man, yeah, just day for day.
And
I went
so
in when I
where
was
did
24, and I got out when I was 38.
so during that 14 years, where were you housed? In what prison?
I was at Lebanon Correctional for 6 years, from 2003 to what is that, 9, and then from which National Geographic was there that those years. some rough years, man. Woo.
Why did they move? Why did they change jails after 6 years?
I got my security dropped after 6 years.
So you were in like a higher security at first,
Yeah,
and then you were lowered,
yeah, yeah.
and so you had more privileges in the lower security facility. So sort of.
It sucks. It's all the same for real, but yeah, you're in
So
a cell versus a dorm. You know what I mean? Like I'd rather have been in the cell.
so how do you feel that growing up in foster care and group homes and institutions sort of conditioned you to end up in prison?
Oh yeah, for sure. The foster care to prison pipeline is real. That's a serious thing. A lot of people don't realize it, and I know a lot of organizations talked about it, and a lot of people try. A lot of organizations tried to pick that up, but they fumbled it because they don't know the recipe. You know what I mean? I do. I know the recipe. I know it
And
really
so
well.
and when you're in there, I'm sure that you met a lot of other people. Were a lot of those people from broken homes or foster care and things like that? Did you meet other guys who were in similar upbringings as yourself?
I. It's funny that you asked that because like during the like up until 2010, so we're talking what half. I got basically 7 years in. You know, half of my sentence in already, and before like I just started I didn't talk to anybody, you know what I mean? And it's uh it's just one of those things like I never really wanted friends there, you know, like I didn't want to do that. So but I talked to some guys, but well mostly before that, yeah, you never really talked about family in there, you know, you never talked about personal stuff in there about what your family was like and all this other stuff. But in 2010, 7 years in, I came off the yard from working out, and I watched PBS a lot because I always wanted to. I watched Rick Steves, you know, travel shows and stuff like that because I didn't want. I wanted to be where they were. You know what I mean? I wanted to take my mind away from the prison system and go to Rick Steves Europe, and watch stuff like that, educational stuff, and um, keep up to date on what's going on out in the real world instead of all the BS on TV like Ellen DeGeneres and Jerry Springer and bullshit, So uh, I had my TV on and I came in and I was changing and this lady was on there talking about uh, foster care and how it's out of control and that they can't fix it. And I stopped and I'm like, huh, that's weird. Why would she say that? And then she started rambling off these statistics about, foster youth in prison, in jail. And I was like, I kind of stood back like, wait a minute. She's talking about me. And I was like, wait a minute. How many other guys are in here from the foster care system? And so I started doing a lot of research, like a lot of research. And I found that there's only one study that's ever been done. I promise you, I've done the research, and it was in 2011. Even to this day, it's the only comprehensive study that I know that exists. It's the 2011 Senate Office of Research, California Senate Office of Research, of how many parolees were once in foster care. And the reason I say this is because there's no identifier. So when you go to prison and you talk to mental health, you talk to the warden's office, you talk to recreation, you talk to chaplain, you talk to all these people when you come in through intake, they don't ask you one time if you've been in foster care. Not one time. So, but I didn't know any of that. I didn't know what an identifier was. I didn't know any of this, right? So as I'm going around, I'm asking unit staff like, "Hey, are there any programs here for foster youth or for former foster youth?" They're like, "No." I'm like, "Well, wait a minute." They said that 33% of the institution is former foster care, and they're like they didn't care, they just whatever, and I was like, "How big is that?" 33%. So if there's the inmates on a compound of 1,500, You're telling me that 300 of these guys are from foster care? That's a crazy number. And I'll give you an analogy what that is. If they called Protestant services, religious services on Sunday, all right, church, you'd see maybe about 100, 175 guys walk across the compound if you have a window facing towards the yard. And that's a large group. It's bigger than the Muslims. It's bigger than the Catholics because there's only a handful of Catholics. There's no Mormons basically. It's way bigger than NAAA. It's way bigger than NAACP. It's the biggest group that populates a prison system is the Protestant Services Church. And if you called former foster that's what this means. If you called former foster youth to the chapel, they wouldn't fit. If you called them to the gym, they might not even fit. 300 some guys, that's a lot of people. So wait a minute. Why isn't there an identifier for the biggest population in the prison system? Why? Makes you wonder who's conditioning who for what? What's going on here? Why is there such a gap, right, in the system? Well, what this means is this. In every single policy that I've looked up, right, across the country, the only one that I couldn't find this information on was Montana, right? Where inmates they're allowed to form what's called inmate groups, right? And these inmate groups have to have a staff advisor. And that staff advisor can be associated with the organization that they're associated with on the street. So say I had a nonprofit out here and there was a former foster youth group in there that I developed or someone developed and they chose me. Or hey, maybe we developed a foster care awareness and have a guest speaker come in to these prisons and talk about foster care awareness or early childhood development, parenting, stuff like that, to the population, right? To for awareness. What would that look like? Well, you're looking at a lot of you're looking at a lot of things here because there's a lot of guys that get out, right? That from foster care that they don't have a place to go. They haven't had a place to go for years, right? So the recidivism from 1950 when basically or the mid 50s when foster care first started until now, you're talking about a huge group of recidivism issues that foster youth or former foster youth face, especially if they're not identified. If they're not identified, then they're not getting the services or mental health that they need. And I say mental health because of this. Say they didn't have PTSD when they entered the prison system, right? Say they were undiagnosed with anything. Now all of a sudden they go, and that PTSD hits them. It's hitting them at the worst point in their life. So what are they going to do? They're either going to cower to someone or they're going to be more violent than anybody that you've ever met. And when you have returning war vets that are promised jobs that also have PTSD, you're talking about a recipe for disaster. You're talking about prison violence spiking, and that's what they want. Why do they want that? I don't know. Why aren't they identified?
Yeah, so I think you're definitely making some good points. And I think a lot of people don't understand the concept of recidivism, especially people who aren't familiar with the prison system and criminal justice system. But essentially, recidivism is, the rate of people returning to prison that reoffend. And, a lot of times, like, you did a long prison sentence, 14 years. A lot of times, people will do 1 year, 2 year, get out, reoffend, end up back again and again. You did a long term. I'm sure you saw guys that left and came back during that 14 years. But the point is that when they let these inmates to be released, a lot of times they're letting them out on the street with no money, no cell phone, no food. Sometimes they make sure that if you're getting released on parole, like they make sure that you have to have an address to get released to. You have to have somebody.
They used to have it to where you couldn't get. They used to have it to where you couldn't get released into a red zone, and that's a high crime area. but they said, "Oh, we can't do that anymore because they come from there." So we have. It's like they
And like,
forced the halfway house issue. You know what I mean? That's where the halfway houses came in and made all that money. The private halfway houses and judges, they have all these like CBCF, the community based correctional facility owned by judges. Let's force them into there. Let's say they can't go to red zones and just force them into there to line our pockets. It's all game.
well, yeah,
It's
and
all
like a
game.
lot of these prisons are for-profit, privately owned
Yep.
prisons.
Nowadays,
And so
yeah.
there's already an incentive to try to fill up
Yep.
these prisons to make more money.
Yep.
And then not to
Yep.
mention, they're getting money from all the programs that they're doing, even if they don't offer the programs to the
So
inmates.
not only is
The
the
fact that they're
state
just,
getting funded, so not only
yeah,
is the state getting funded for foster youth, for taking the child from the family, right? They're getting funded all the way through adulthood.
yeah. And like you were
It's
saying
a
with
cycle.
mental health, it's
Yep.
like a lot of these people are going to have mental health issues
Yep.
already. And like, back
Yep.
in the day, they used to have like big, like mental asylums and like mental institutions. And then a lot of
It's
these
funny
got
that you say
closed.
that.
Yeah. And
It's funny that
historically,
you say that.
yeah, we learned this in school that historically, like when they shut down all these big institutions, where did all these people with mental illnesses end up? They ended up
I have a
to
question.
become one, the homeless population in the United
Uh-huh.
States, and two, the prison population. And I think I
Yeah.
read some statistics
Correct.
out
Yeah.
there that like
That's
80%
where
or
they
some,
are.
yeah, like
Yep.
80% of inmates have mental health
Yep. Yep.
issues.
Yep.
So it's
That's
like
true.
now
That's
these
true.
people in these prisons are not equipped. They don't have the training or the resources, or they don't even care to do all that. Even if they have the money, they don't spend it on that. So then not only are these people being exposed, also when you're around other criminals, you're learning how to be a better criminal. You go in jail, you say, "Oh, what are you in here for?" "Oh, well, I did this robbery." "Oh, how'd you do it?" "Well, I did
There's
this, and this."
there's
You learn how to be a
there's
criminal.
Yeah, there's a thing that I disbelieve. I'm not a firm believer in evidence-based programming. I'm definitely not. Because if it's evidence-based, where's the evidence that it's working? Because our statistics are getting worse. They're not getting any better. So where are you locking in this information? Where is this information coming in? They don't want experience-based. They don't want that. They don't want someone that's been through it to say, "Hey, no, this is the problem, fix it." Which is what I do now. You know what I mean? But it's funny that you said the asylums, right? Have you ever heard of the orphan train?
Yes.
Okay. Hmm. Where'd all the kids go from the people that they were putting in the asylums?
Where'd all the parents go?
To in the asylums. But where did the kids go?
CPS.
Orphan train. So the real story about the orphan train may not be the real story on the orphan train. I'm just saying. I mean, that's a rabbit hole. I don't want to go down.
I mean,
Just
like
like the
think
little
about,
brown trucks, just like the little brown trucks, the UPS guys that drive around. Yeah, some of them might be suspicious too because of Casey family programs. Ha ha ha. Yeah, don't get me started on that, but that's a rabbit hole that I don't want to go down either. I don't know if you know who Casey Family Programs is, but they do human subject test review committees, and they take experiments and on little kids and yeah, without consent. Who's consenting? So there's a lot of stuff. There's a lot of stuff. There's a lot of rabbit holes that I can go down right now, right? That Casey Family Programs, Casa Gal, these governmental, funded people that are just horrible. 95. Oh my gosh. 95. We'll get into that here in a second. But yeah, I don't like them. I don't like Jim Casey's rolling it over in his grave right now. He's like,
so let's get
he's
back
sick.
into what we were saying with the whole prison thing, because I think it's a good point to make that. Let's just say somebody goes in prison, they're 19 years old. Their
Oof.
parents threw them out. They end up doing a 5-year sentence. Now they get out, they're 24. They're left out on the street. They're wearing their orange jumpsuit. They got no phone, no money, nothing. And they say, "Okay, have a good day. You're
No, they
free."
give.
Now,
I'm gonna stop you there. They do have resources where you can get a phone, but you got to go. They do leave you
that's
with
what I'm saying. The
$75.
second that you're let on the street, you don't
uh,
have anywhere to go. You don't have
you're left
money.
at a Greyhound.
Maybe you have a directions of how to get a phone, but you don't have one right then and there. and maybe you have $75 in your pocket, but not all jails do that. I know in Connecticut, they don't give you any money in Connecticut when you get out, and they charge you for your sentence. If you get a lawsuit, they're going to make you pay them back for every day you went in prison. But listen, so let's just
A
say now
salad
you get
costs
out.
$15 nowadays. So what are you going to do with $75? Like go to get a bus to get a salad? I mean, come on now.
Yeah, so let's say that that person gets out and they're back in society, that they have been not in the world for 5 years. So
Is a rat.
think about how
They're
different it
trying
is
to
now.
find some chick. They're finding.
What are
They're
their
finding.
options?
They're finding some chick. They're finding
Their
some chick
options are
to go
find
live
a
with.
find a life of crime in the streets, gang activity, joining a gang, joining
No,
life of
man. No,
crime.
they're gonna go find. They're gonna go try to find somebody. They're gonna go
Yeah, but
find a chick to
not
live up with.
everybody has that option. Some guys can't just easily get a chick like that. You know what I mean?
Right.
So what's
True.
their
True.
alternative? Their alternative is living on the street or going back to a life of crime or ending up back in jail. But
Right.
those who
But if
can
they do find a
latch
chick,
onto, yeah. So
if they
talk
do
about
find
that.
that,
So why do you
the
think that they would do that?
majority of the time, the child will end up in CPS.
So you're
Nine
saying
times out
that
of 10, I'm willing to bet that that's what happens.
So you're saying that you think that when these inmates get out of jail, they feel like more pressured, or they have this desire to try to find a woman that they can sort of just like shack up with and have a
Not a
baby.
woman. A woman ain't going. A woman ain't going to. A woman ain't going to do it. You know what I mean? But a little girl, she might. You know what I mean? A little thought, she might. But a woman ain't going to do it. So I'm gonna have to correct you on that one.
So do you think that
But
the
yeah,
reason what that makes them want to do it is because they have nowhere to live, nowhere to go, and they
true,
just want somebody to latch onto?
true.
Is that, and do you
Especially
think
from
that,
foster care. Especially from foster care. Absolutely,
and so
absolutely.
what is it about being in jail then that makes them gravitate towards doing that? Is it just that they're desperate for a place to stay? Is that how you see it?
Sure. Yeah, that's how I see it. I mean, I've seen it. They're in there talking. They're in there talking. You got someone I can write? You got someone I can write? Yeah, yeah, I got you, man. I got you, bro. I mean, I seen you and your girl on a visit the other day, man. What's up with a friend, bro? You got one? That's how it all starts.
What about
I
having
got, I
kids?
got, I got put down like that, man.
Do you feel like,
I got released to a bank manager in Wadsworth, Ohio, at U.S. Bank. So yeah, it happens.
so do you feel
So I
like
walked
that
through
they
I
also,
walked through my dude's cell, and all I heard was, "Damn, who's that?" I put down my hoodie. I was like, "Hold on, let me see that phone. Who is you? What's your number? I'm gonna call you about 10 minutes."
and so do you feel like they also have this desire to then have a baby and get the girl
Maybe
pregnant?
not have it. Maybe that wasn't the plan at all, and that wasn't my plan. I wasn't out running like, "Hey, I need a baby." You know what I mean? I didn't do any of that, but it's nice to confide in someone that you can whatever, and possibly come home to for sure. Who wouldn't?
So do you think that it's like their desire to have that like home and stability and like family will drive these
Maybe
guys to then try to find somebody that has
until
a
they meet
place?
somebody better.
And then
I
do you
don't
think
know.
that then it makes it so it's like unhealthy, because it's not like they're with
Of
these people
course,
because they love them and stuff. They're more like
of,
using them. And then if they have
it's
a baby,
game.
how does
It's
that then
game.
make it more likely? How does it then make it more likely that if they do have a kid, that then their kid will end up in foster care and back in prison in the same cycle?
Well, likely, very, 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 very likely, because maybe he didn't want to do that. Maybe that, you know what I mean? Maybe he didn't want to do that, or maybe she pushes him away. Whatever the scenario is, I've seen it 100 times over. You know what I mean? Because you, birds of a feather, what?
Flock
Birds of
together.
a feather, right, right. So if this is the environment that it's not about it is about change. It's not about where you go. It's not about, Ohio's messed up, man. I want to move. Oh man, these people are crazy. If you go to Indiana or Connecticut and attract the same people, you're gonna have the same results you did where you left. So it's about change. It's about changing your whole outlook on life and making it better for yourself instead of trying to appease somebody else or trying to um, jump into something. Get your life together, man. do you before you lose everything. And if it's a baby, it's a baby. If it's your life, it's your life. You know, if it's your parents, it's your parents. Dudes burn their bridges with their parents every day in the joint. They don't care. Mama's, man, these guys are extorting me. No, you were on a gambling table, man. Why don't you tell her the truth? You know what I mean? You lost it. Don't make your mom sit here and feel sad for you. You know what I mean? Like, people are picking on you, bro. They're not picking on you. You were at the gambling table, or you owe the store man. Stop lying. You know? But they burn their bridges. They burn their own bridges, and they don't care. It's crime. It's a life of crime. You think murderers in there care about not offing somebody else? Man, they don't. Man, they'll do it in a heartbeat. Not even think twice about it because they've done it before. Yet that's the type of people. You're aggressive people, aggressive, not caring people at all. They don't care about your sensitivities. And what? Who are you? You're just someone that just is walking through. To them, they're doing life. That's their life. You know what I mean? And they have to be raw. They have to be aggressive. That's the way it is.
Well, not
Me,
everybody
on
is.
the other
Not
hand,
everybody in
I had to
prison
do
is.
14. I had to do
Not
14
everybody's
years.
guilty though. Not everybody sitting in jail did a violent crime, and not everybody in
Correct.
jail is guilty.
They
There's
don't
people
deserve right.
wrongfully convicted.
Some
There's
people
people
don't
who
make
did
it.
stuff that's so petty, but they still go to jail, and then they're still in there. And I think that it's important to like
Yeah.
realize, like, you know, like you said before, if somebody has mental health issues and then they go to jail, it's going to be 10 times worse. Then they get out, they're
Yeah.
not getting the support they need and the services they need. And then if they go in that state of mind where they're like desperate, then they go knock a girl up, have another baby that they're not ready to have, that they can't support. That kid ends up in the system, back in jail.
It
And so it's
just
like
repeats
people
the
ask, like,
cycle.
and like a lot of people don't understand, like, they're not just
That's
doing
the
this.
foster care to prison pipeline. Nobody has that information. Nobody's like, oh, wait a minute, that makes sense. Because every 12 weeks, every day, people get out every day, right? But if you add up how many people in Ohio that's gotten out in that 12-week period, because programs run, ODRC requires a 12-week program focus, right? Because that's the average stay, 12 weeks. So you go 12 weeks, count how many people on an average get out in those 12 weeks. It's a lot of people. And if the majority of them are from the foster care system, man, they think girls want to just get pregnant and just keep getting pregnant to live off the system. So that's what they think. That's what they grew up around. You know, let's sap off of welfare. Let's have another baby. Oh, they can have that one. Oh, I'll just have another one. Oh, what? Come on now. Wait, who does that? That's what foster care is teaching these kids. Keep teaching the girls. It's okay to have kids. No, it's not. Stop. Stop it. Because you're just populating the system for them again.
That's
And
what I
again
mean.
and
Then
again.
when these guys get out of jail and they're trying to go live with these girls and get them pregnant or whatever, because they're so desperate for like consistency or a family or a home,
The majority of men are boys and girls that go through foster care, they never really had stability. So when they're faced with stability, they're like, they get scared, right? It's that trauma. It's that I can't do this, I can't do it, and leave. You know what I mean? That's what happens. But
that's
some
with
people are like
anybody
that.
who's abused.
Yep. And it's even as a mental health aspect. You're asked about your sexual preference, you're asked about your religion, you're asked about all these things, right, that make no sense on why you're being asked. Obviously it's obvious, I'm a man, it, it- you would think mental health that basically runs every single prison. Okay, this is what I mean by that. If I'm having a problem, right, and I go to my CO, my correctional officer in the block, they're gonna be like, I don't know what to tell you. If you go to the sergeant and tell the sergeant, hey man, I'm having a problem, he's gonna be like, man, you made me do some paperwork, man, get out of here. But you go to mental health's gonna be like, oh yeah, they're gonna pull their weight around the institution, and they do. They pull their weight, and they basically run prison. The mental health people, they anything you need or want, mental health to get it for you. They run it. They run the prison system. So even at that aspect, You would think that foster youth would be a priority to them because if they're not being recognized, if they're not being identified, they're not knowing that there's a potential problem, very huge problem here. The amount of recidivism, like you said, the amount of substance abuse, the amount of homelessness and once released because there are no reentry services for them, specifically for them. And most of all, the most important is that undiagnosed issue with PTSD, that violence, the violence. If my if my violence, right, was at a minimal, right, just going around beating up foster kids, doing whatever, okay, then all of a sudden I go to prison, and now I realize that hey, I got to put on this show because I'm from foster care. And I don't care. I don't care. I never have. I got to put on a show. And what's the show going to be? It's going to be the most. It's going to be the most because that's all you've known is the most. Or the other part is very timid. And what happens to timid people? That yellow tape's going up around the cell, and you're going to get a essay test. You know what I mean? And it's not good. It's not good. And I've spoken up for people that have been through the foster care system that are timid. It's not their fault. When I ran my program in there, that's the first thing I said when these guys came in. And I said, "Look, man," and I cried sometimes. I said, "It's not your fault." They're like, "What do you mean?" Because they're just meeting me, and I'm like, "It's not your fault that your mom or dad abused you. It's not your fault that you were SA'd or you were neglected or abused. It's not your fault." And I get that. I get that it's not your fault. And your mom and dad would tell you the same thing if they were here. I said, I know, I understand what you guys are going through. Every single minute of it. And it sucks, I know. But we got to get out and we got to be better men. We got to be better people. Because this life, man, who wants to be around a bunch of swinging D's? You know what I mean? Who? It's stupid. Let's change. Let's make a change. And that's people. When I developed Moving Forward, which is my program, I put a lot of thought into it. It took me 7 years to write it. 7 years. And when I got out, I got it copywritten. When I was in prison, like everybody, there was no incentives. You didn't get any good days or body wash or loofahs, to come to my program. You got hey, man, good to see you. You know what I mean? I'm glad you're here. And we didn't have any supervision either. There was no supervision. We didn't have a CO sitting in there at all. At a level 3, that's unheard of. Every level 3, guess what, man? You got supervision everywhere you go. They're right behind you, watching you. Level 2, maybe. Level 1, maybe. You know what I mean? You might be able to get it off, but you're still going to have unit staff in there. Your case manager or unit manager. But my unit manager at Mansfield Correctional, where I ran my program, see, I went from Lebanon 6 years, and then I went to Marion for 4 years, and then I finished it out at Mansfield, so my security got raised again. So when I was at Mansfield, I finished the program, and I finished the mission statement, I finished the purpose and the goal statement, and I was like, man, I want to start a nonprofit when I get out because these guys, they're coming to me, gang members, like heads of gangs, coming in, sitting on my toilet. I got a little cover for my toilet so you don't hear it. You know what I mean? With cardboard, it looks nice. So, anyways, they sit on the toilet and they talk to me, and they tell me about themselves, and they cry, and they tell me everything that they've been through, rape, abuse, and I'm like, damn, dude, like for real. I know how you feel, man. I know how you feel. I mean, man. I feel for you, man. How can I be a better person for you? You know what I mean? How can I be a better friend to you? Just let me know. Please let me know. They're like, man, I don't want to be in this gang anymore. I like this. I like what this is. And what do you guys have on the street?
So a lot of the things that you were talking about, like the group homes, the foster care, even the
Mhm.
process of the adoption, all of these different programs, including in the prisons with the mental health and everything like that, a lot of people are not aware of the fact that the federal government through Title 4E actually pays back incentives like through federal grant money for these type of programs. And in every state, there's different ways that they're able to collect the money and bill the federal government for these different programs. And in some of them, they get back 60%, 50%, 40%, all different amounts, but it's free money that they don't have to give back. So, for example, in Connecticut, they have Connecticut Department of Children and Families, which is like DCF, and then they have the judicial branch. And then they have a bunch of different nonprofits. So all these nonprofits get millions and millions of dollars in free grant money from the feds every year. They say that they're going to use this money for charitable purposes to give legal aid, to give helping people with domestic violence, all this kind of stuff. But in reality, if I call right now and say, I'm dealing with domestic violence, I need help, they'll say, I'm sorry, but we can't help anybody right now. Or if they are helping people, they'll say, well, we can't give you an attorney to help you, but we can give you a 1 hour consultation where we'll just talk to you about your case, but you have to sign a waiver saying that we can testify against you in court and this is not going to be confidential. And like, meanwhile, they're paying themselves like 6-figure salaries with full state benefits and stuff. So like there's those nonprofits, and then the judicial branch and DCF, if they have supervision over your case, they can continue to bill the federal government indefinitely. But supervision is defined as just basically you having a case. So, like in Connecticut, for example, if somebody files for custody or divorce or child support, that case never closes. That docket stays on there forever. So they can literally just keep billing. And same, a lot of people think like, oh, if there's like supervision of DCF, like if the DCF has an open case and if there's a foster home, okay, that's a no-brainer. The foster parent gets paid every month for having the foster kids. And obviously, if DCF has an open case, they can say it's under supervision. But what people don't realize is that even when they transfer custody from one parent to the other and just have a case in family court alone, that alone lets them be able to keep billing. So, have you discovered in Ohio? What is it like in Ohio?
Pre-1980, right? Title 40 was virtually untapped. Like it was untapped. Now all of a sudden, here comes perhaps 30 to 5 million annually funded, funneled in and scattered into county programs with no standardized billing, like no billing. Then all of a sudden, like if you label them, now you can bill. If you label the kid, now you can bill, right?
When you say label, what do you mean label it as what?
It's like a like
a vulnerable youth or something like that.
Yep. As long as you label them now, it's billable. It's, you know what I mean, and that's what they figured out. Like, hey, it's billable now. So Mubarak Awad was like a major push behind that. You know what I mean? He's the one that came up with these residential treatment facilities and group homes, right? So now all of a sudden, here it is, boom. Now you can bill, and it's not only Medicaid, it's the Kathy, it's all these all like used Ohio NIAP, the Ohio Youth Commission. You have the ASFA, the Adoption of Safe Families Act, also pushes for a lot of that corruption within organizations. Here in Ohio, you have the NIAP, which is the National Youth Advocacy Program, which started here in Ohio as the Ohio Youth Advocacy Program, which turned into a state agency, not a state agency, but a state agency. It's kind of weird. It's like the PCSAO here in Ohio, the Public Children's Service Association of Ohio. It's a pay-to-play scheme. right? Where these 88 counties, they have to pay PCSAO to operate, and they're directly getting funded from the governor and the attorney general. They get funding from them. So if and like the ombudsman, Mott's here had a down south, in Southern Ohio. She had a when she was the director down there. She had a 300% spike of adoptions. 300%. Guess where
Wow.
she is now? Guess where she is now?
Prison?
No, no. Well, yeah, you would hope, right? You would hope, but no, she's the ombudsman. She runs the ombudsman's office. So if you have any complaints about children's services, about anything regarding them, you have to write the ombudsman and complain. Man, 90% of those complaints go unheard. Why? Man, it's part of the game. It's part of the game. It's like Foster Care Alumni of America. What do? Nothing. Foster Club, what do? Foster Club actually, it's All-Star Insert. They place alumni there, right? Where they basically draft reports, and then they get shot down. I mean, it's just like the Congressional Caucus on Foster Youth. What do? Nothing.
Yeah, so I
They
think
teach
like
how to navigate. That's it.
yeah, like
There's no
people need to
change.
understand like all of these things that they're getting funding for, it's free money. When it's a grant, it's not a loan. They don't have to ever pay it back. So if they
No.
know that they can just sign up as many people as labeling them as a, vulnerable youth or whatever, and then just get a check, where's the incentive for them to stop? Even having those kids in prison, for every juvenile in prison or every
Yeah.
adult in
Yeah.
prison, they're
They're
able
not
to then
identified.
bill it.
That's where I get these organizations. If you're an organization and you put out there that the percentage of foster youth that end up in prison, and the public sees that, I call them out on that. Because how do you have that information? Where's that information coming from? I know for a fact that there's no identifier once they walk in that door. So how are these organizations using that for Title IV-E? How? There's no
Unless they're
identifier anywhere in this country for
just
former
looking at
foster
their own records of the
No.
foster kids.
There's a couple studies that came out. One's from the juvenile law that just came out in 2025. They didn't. They're still not there's still no identifier, right? So I'm juvenile law. They know who I am. You call juvenile law and say Scott Hampton. Call Casa National and say Scott Hampton. They're gonna hang up on you. They're gonna be like, oh no, we don't want to talk to him, right? Because I call them out. I call them out on their BS, right? Because if you're perpetrating, like you know how many like former foster youth are in prison or in jail, period. You're lying. You're a liar, and you're using that to get this money. Title IV-E. You're using it to get sympathetic, donations from the public, saying that you help them. No, you don't. How are you getting them? The 2005 Midwest study is the only other one that I know of that has a comprehensive study of like 300 some former foster youth that are homeless or whatever, and they ask them like, "Hey, were you ever in jail or prison?" And they said yes. 300 some, that's how they got the 33%. That's what these organizations are living off of, is the 2005 Midwest study. But the real one, the only comprehensive one that I've actually received was the 2011 California Senate Office of Research, which is a very interesting page 8 and 10. It says on there that CDCR, which California Department of Corrections, which moving forward was accepted there by Erica Lake. Hi, Erica Lake, if you're watching. But I had to close that campaign down because We Lift LA started talking about misappropriating funds, and I told him no. You have no license to run my program. And Erica Lake was a nice lady. She was going to give them good days and everything for my program. It was during COVID. I was going to go through Scott Budsnick. He's the producer of Hangover, Project X, all these other. They were going to make a video, and these guys were going to my program, and they were going to basically get good days, 5 good days a month, I think it was, and that's more than Ohio. But if you look at uh most of who's involved here in Ohio, as far as like scheming off the top, I've got 25 names right here. I got 25 names right in front of me, and these 25 names are whoo-wee. This is Rico all day long. If you look at this is Rico all day long. Most of these people, right? They're they're it's a revolving door. It's PCSAO. It's it's a whole bunch of corrupt people that Mike DeWine has basically put there to run the scheme. And this is the playbook for the whole country right here.
So essentially, a lot of what we're talking about is, in a way, a funding pipeline that is designed to separate families. And if we're looking at examples of Ohio and other states like Connecticut or New York, you can see that this is actually something that's happening on a national level. And this is basically driven through the Title 4E, foster care and adoption, and Title 4D, child support and Medicaid, which creates a web of grants that keeps cases alive even when a child is not in foster home. And the core issue here is that the federal government reimburses states when children are taken from their homes. And so under Title 4E, states get a large federal match for costs tied to out-of-home placements and for pushing cases towards termination of parental rights and adoption. So there's far less money, and there's a lot less money if you keep a family together than if you rip a family apart. And so there's also the ASFA's 15 of 22 months clock and Title 4D. And so essentially, like, the second that custody flips from one parent to another, the parent who lost custody then can get a child support order. And so Title 4D is another federal program that funds the state enforcement of these child support orders. And it means that the state can get paid in order to collect from the very parent that they displaced and took away from their child. And even when a child is not placed with a stranger, like in your case, when you were placed in foster home and adopted out, even when a child just moves from mom's house to dad's house or from dad's house to mom's house, these agencies can keep the case open under what they call court supervision. And
Correct.
that allows them to then unlock the Title 4E administrative match for ongoing casework, legal process, and then Medicaid, which is for the medical care, pays for the evaluations, the therapy, the medication, the supervised visits. So basically, the revenue and money does not stop just because a child goes to the other parent instead of foster care. It just changes lanes. And the foster board payments to admin, attorneys, service providers, and child support collections. And one more interesting thing I want to note is that if you're to compare like Ohio and Connecticut to, say, New York or other states, they're all doing the same thing in different ways. For instance, in Ohio, I looked into this, and it says in Ohio, county children's services run the show, coordinated by statewide associations and a network of contractors.
Right.
And so in Ohio, the playbook is familiar. Hotline to investigative track to quick hearing, and then a removal or a custody flip with agency supervision. And then once
but that's CASA, Gal. 95% of removals are done by CASA or Gal. It's a playbook that's it's disgusting.
Right. And my point is that, like, it's the details so much don't matter. The point is that once the case is open, then the Title 4E and Medicaid money faucet gets turned on, and then they can use Title 4D to collect again with child support. Now, the difference between Ohio, that's how Ohio does it. In Connecticut, where I'm from, the agency is DCF, Department of Children and Families. The court can then remove a child and place them with a parent under protective supervision, and then it keeps DCF and the court in control.
Involved,
They do service plans, supervised
Yeah.
visits, reviews.
Yeah.
So then the
Yeah.
Title IV money and Medicaid billing can continue. And also all these kids get signed up for Medicaid. So
Yeah.
meanwhile, the child support order gets put on the displaced parent who was forced away from their kid, and the family
Correct.
is destroyed. The case continues to get federal funding, and the clock
Right.
termination continues to tick. And like even like
Yep.
in New York, they have OCFS, and instead of DCF, they have ACS. And under Family Court Article 10, the court can release to a non-respondent parent with supervision, which
Mhm.
causes the same outcome. The child is moved, the case stays active, the 4E
Right.
and Medicaid and 4D are open, so then they can continue to bill the federal government and collect indefinitely. And across all of these states, there's also smaller federal funding streams that they exploit, including
Yeah.
the access and visitation grants and the responsible fatherhood grants, which in turn discriminate against mothers, because if there's funding incentives where you get paid to let fathers have custody, there's an incentive to then rip the custody from mothers and give it to fathers so that they can get paid. And these grants also fund the supervised visit centers, the monitored exchanges,
Well, see,
mediation.
they're using that. They're using that as if you can label them preventative or what's the other one here? The other one is the if you labeled them therapeutic. If it's therapeutic or preventative, they're getting Title 40. It's just the way it is.
Right. And
Everything can be
also,
labeled that.
right. And also, like, it goes even deeper, because when allegations of abuse, sexual abuse, like in my case where my daughter disclosed sexual abuse, they send these kids
Mhm.
to a forensic interview. And
Yeah, I know,
so
right?
a forensic interview at a child abuse clinic can then become the on ramp to the system, even when the
Yes, they are the on
disclosures.
ramp.
Right. And so a 10-minute emergency hearing can then flip custody to the other parent, which is why they then will put the other parent on supervised visits, because then they
Yeah,
can keep billing for more services. It keeps these
yeah,
agencies billing, and then they make it so that the other parent who reported abuse has to now pay child support, has to pay for
mhm,
supervised visits, and all of these
yeah,
incentives continue to keep the case active and open,
yeah, yeah.
and there's no reunification. And so the
No,
same kids that are pushed into foster placements or long supervised reunification tracks are more likely to face school disruption, over
yeah.
medication, residential placements,
You know
and
why this?
contact with the juvenile justice system.
You know why they basically said, okay, we're getting a lot of flack because of non-reunification, so we have to make it look like there's some sort of something going on for reunification when there's not. It's still the same play, it's still the same scheme, it's still the same everything. It's not, nothing's changed, nothing's going to change unless the ASFA gets. If you go on my Facebook, there's only 4 people on there, but you go on my Facebook and it says repeal ASFA. Who are you to say you have 15 to 22 months? Who are you? You know what I mean? Mike DeWine pushed for that, and he's our governor. He's Ohio's governor. So he's the one that pushed for the best interest of the child. And it's basically the reason why the ASFA got passed. It's DeWine, he's been our governor since 2019. He's vetoed reforms like House Bill 68, which could require transparency in ASFA, citing administrative a burden. But meanwhile, Ohio adoption bonuses topped 10 million in 2024.
Yeah, and so basically, like, everything that I just described is essentially what you would call the foster care to prison pipeline that we talked about earlier. And
Yeah,
this
yeah,
is basically what happens when the system is designed to give financial incentives and financial rewards to removal, surveillance, and
yeah,
compliance, and
yeah.
they underfund the prevention, family support, and due
On
process.
purpose.
And so
On
this is
purpose.
not about demonizing every caseworker or every judge. Many
No,
people in the system do want to help, but the fact that there are these really, really lucrative financial incentives
they're
is
called
what is
ghost
driving.
sessions.
It's called what?
Ghost sessions.
Yeah, and it's like if there's financial incentives, and this is what's driving the behavior. It's following the money. And when the federal government pays states to remove, manage, and adopt out, and pays again to collect from the parent who objects, you get more removals, more management, more collections of money. You get children ripped away from safe parents. You get custody flips weaponized in private disputes. And you get a pipeline that punishes poverty and disability while calling it best interest. So in my opinion, what needs to change is that we need to stop giving or redirect the federal money so that more money flows towards keeping kids safe with their family rather than removing them from their family. They should also stop these adoption bounties and the agency revenue from out-of-home placement, require real evidentiary standards at removals, record every forensic interview, and guarantee that there can be independent attorneys and counsel for parents and children without letting the lawyers become a new revenue stream. And so all of these examples I've given, Ohio, Connecticut, New York, it's not limited to those. This is happening in every single state. Every state is billing the feds for these programs, and it's different names in each state. So until we get rid of these financial incentives, the behavior is not going to stop, and the pipeline is going to keep running.
Of course. Yeah, I think the biggest scheme that I've come across, right, in this whole thing is the foster to adopt scheme. Now, a lot of people don't really know what that means, foster to adopt. So say you're a foster parent or you want to be a foster parent. You go to the agency and you tell them, "Hey, I want to be a foster parent." They're like, "Are you sure you don't want to adopt?" And they talk them into it. Because there's such a need for adoption, right? They have someone wanting to take care of a kid. Why not try to talk them into adoption, right? So that's what they do. They talk you into adoption. So they say, "Oh, yeah, I'll think about it." So, okay, we'll give you little Jimmy, right? We'll let you test little Jimmy out for, however long. See if you want to adopt him. See if he's a good fit for your family. So they're like, "Okay, well, we'll take little Jimmy." So little Jimmy goes and lives with them. Hey, don't take candy from strangers, but move in with them, right? Totally backwards. Anyways, so they get little Jimmy, and they like little Jimmy. They love little Jimmy, right? They're spoiling little Jimmy. Little Jimmy's getting more than obviously his parents because little Jimmy wants to be there because he's getting more, right? It's the financial gain for him, right? So they call the agency and they say, yeah, we love little Jimmy. We want to keep him. Okay, it's 2 weeks in. The kid was just removed 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago, a month ago. Guess what? That mom or dad is still out there doing everything that they can to get this child back, but that child's already gone. That child's already sold like a commodity. And the mom doesn't even know it. Because CASA's gal, they do it behind their back. They push for foster to adopt. And that's what they do. It's sick. It's sick. They'll string that mom or dad all along and say, "You're at fault for this, you're at fault for this, you're at fault for this, you're at fault for this." It could be the same thing. It could be a false positive for medication that they're not allowing her to fucking, excuse my language, to submit to the court or something along that line to where they violate her all along so that they can get little Jimmy. They're going to get little Jimmy. And that's sick. That's sad. That's fostering to adopt. We need to get rid of that. That is the most disgusting thing ever because it's violating all kinds of due process rights for the mother and father or father. That's what's happening. They're selling these kids from right up underneath the mom or dad per ASFA. And the other thing is Casa Gal, man, they're something else, man. They're sick people. They're sick people. I'm sorry. I hate to say that on your podcast, but they are so deeply entwined in this whole thing. I don't understand why they haven't been shut down yet. 95%, and most of the stuff that I have, I don't know if you can pull up that one about Casa, but it's the one that's written, but 95% of their removals, 95% of their removals will experience physical abuse, emotional abuse, and SA. Like, period. Like, that's a known fact. And I don't know if you know this or not, but Kappa Alpha Theta supports them. A sorority supports them. That's one of their main funders for fundraising is Kappa Alpha Theta, and I'm on their heels for supporting people like that because they don't know that they're no. They push for the adoption. They push for the removal. They push for everything. And it was funded by a judge. I mean, not funded, but it was founded by a judge. A judge founded Casa Gal. And it's sick that the mom or dad is like, yeah, I get an attorney. Come on, man. It's the same people that's representing the child for the removal. And they're like so happy that they got a gal. Like, don't you know who they are? Yeah, it's an attorney. They're for the best interest of they're really sweet. They're really nice. Are they though? Like the prosecution, the judge, and the Casa Gal, they're pulled from the same social network, man. So how can anybody get a fair trial, even if there is a trial? How? They're part of the same machinery. And what I mean by that is here in the state of Ohio, there's a case law called State versus Tombolin, right? So which means this. If there's something in possession of the Bureau of Motor Vehicles here in Ohio, right? And it has something to do with the case. And the prosecution says, well, the police didn't turn that over to us. Then guess what? State versus Tombolin says that you guys are part of the same machinery and you could have or should have known that evidence existed because you're part of the state. You know that evidence or could have known that evidence existed. And those two words, could have or should have known, are very poisonous. The fruit of the poisonous tree. Anything that happened at the beginning of wherever it started of the unconstitutionality, everything else is unconstitutional. It doesn't matter. You know what I mean? So if the removal was the unconstitutional portion of the unconstitutionality, then everything after that doesn't matter. That's what's unconstitutional, and that's what gets the case thrown out. And a lot of people don't know that. And Mike DeWine, he's pushed for a lot of stuff, man. He gets poverty, people in poverty. He gets their kids removed here in Ohio. His wife linked up with Dolly Parton, the books for prisoners. So the prisoners, they sign a piece of paper and they say, yeah, I want books sent to my kids. Man, that's a registry to take your kids. Are you guys serious? Don't sign that. Don't get any books sent to your kids, man, from prison, from the Dolly Parton people, because they're hooked. No, that's a target. That is a straight target. And they look for any single way to get you on that list for removal. And you look into it, man. Mike DeWine is one of the main backers of the ASFA. And Nancy Schaefer was against it. She talked about what we're sitting here talking about years and years ago. She already knew what was going to happen. If you don't know, look it on YouTube. Look and see who Nancy Schaefer is, and they'll tell you. And her and her husband were offed, and it wasn't. They say it was accident, whatever. But it's here in Ohio. You've got Mike Morrow, you've got Todd, you got Trisha Motz. NIAP consulted. She's NIAP consulted 2008 to 2016 CASA for a Montgomery County director from 2016 to 2022. She had a 300% adoption spike via rushed hearings. Family sued, but no reunification. A state ombudsman now from 2022 till now. She makes $120K. Sean Lawrence, Hamilton County Children's Service Director from 1992 from 2003. He split 500 siblings up. There was lawsuits out the yin yang, and removals and child safety solutions. He runs child safety solutions now. He makes $200,000 a year. Hamilton audits, and he trained with Mike Morrow, and he consults the PC SAO. So all these 25 people that are listed here are straight part of the whole United States playbook by Mike DeWine. And the list goes on. Melissa Daniels, she's the START manager. She's 70% of calls to removal from the START program. Frank Alessio, Lucas probate judge. He's a PCASO advisor. You know what I mean? They have key people in place to where the corruption is going to stay, and Mike DeWine knows it. And he was a senator. He was a young prosecutor for the state of Ohio. You know what I mean? And it's sad that he's been able to do what he's done throughout this whole country. And I guarantee, if you look at this, if anybody wants this, I don't know if you can make it public or not, but if anybody wants that list or wants that document, it's available. Email me, put my email up there. I'll email it to them. But here's like it says, the trigger: poverty or a minor issue, missed rent or school absence, assessment, caseworker visits, FCCS or similar, notes neglect under revised code 2151.03, and there's a hearing. After the hearing, the juvenile court stamps removal, 10 to 15 minutes. No full hearing. What? Placement, kids to NIAP, cadence, right? Cadence is a big one here in Ohio now. Placement to NIAP / cadence to the group home. Magnetic strips they put in. Billing, Title 4E, $5,200 a month residential treatment facilities get per kid, because it's labeled therapeutic. As long as it's preventative or therapeutic, they bill Medicaid. That's what needs to change. The Medicaid law on billing needs to change. That's what needs to change. That way they can't keep getting away with this. Medicaid needs to be held responsible for this.
Well, again, all of it goes back to these federal funding incentives where Congress created in Title 4D and Title 4E the ability for these states to get paid from the feds for doing this. So until that gets repealed, then it's not going to stop. And so this is going to continue. It's going to keep getting worse unless and until they get rid of these federal funding incentives that make children into commodities and make prisoners into commodities and destroy families.
Let's advertise them on TV. What?
Yeah, they don't do that. I don't think they do that anymore.
No. 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 That's horrible. It's horrible. Like I say, Foster Club. We'll go to Foster Club. I don't know if are you familiar with Foster Club?
No.
Oh yeah, Foster Club. It's for former foster youth. They run it. It's former foster youth. They run it. These people are put in place by you'll see. Foster Club launched in 2010 in Oregon. They launched in 2010 in Oregon as it's an online hub with podcasts and resources for alumni like me, right? And what they do is it funnels PCSAO events. Hold on, wait. So training consists on billing trauma-informed care. Their 2023 All-Star Internship placed alumni in DCY offices where they drafted reports ignoring violence when it spiked with 62 assaults in DYS in 2024. And DYS is our Department of Youth Services here in Ohio. So the Congressional Foster Care, the Caucus on Foster Youth, formed in 2013 by Karen Bass and Tom Marino. It's bipartisan but toothless. They don't do anything. They get some foster kids to go in there and look, and then they impress the public with them. Oh, look, we get some foster kids in there, and even though the foster kid might have an idea, they'll push that idea to their narrative, and that foster kid's just a pawn in their overall scheme, and they're put there in place so people like me that know what's going on can't make a move because that already exists, but it doesn't. It's like the independent living program. What do they do in the independent living program? They watch blow and eat pizza. But what do I want to do? I want to get a plumber in there and to have 2 sinks and 2 toilets. Teach someone how to put a wax ring on a toilet. You know, how to shine shoes, how to bargain shop, how to save money, how to live, not watch blow and eat pizza. Come on, man. Who does that? That's what they do. That's where the federal funding's going. That's how it's funny.
Because they don't care. They get paid regardless of if they eat pizza or if they teach you how to read. They don't care. It's the same money no matter what. Nope, but so now you have your nonprofit, and what are you offering to, if people out there need help, what kind of things do you do?
I don't have a nonprofit. I want one. I have a for-profit. The reason for the for-profit was because I have a curriculum, and I did have a lot of funding from Star Commonwealth in Albion, Michigan, and I still might. I just they told me the other day. I just talked to him the other day. Hey, get with Mike Morrow. But I have Mike Morrow as one of these people on the list. Okay, so he's not very happy with me right now. Okay, he's not very happy with me, and I don't know if they know that or not. But I exposed part of the game and well, the game, and they don't like it. I don't know if Star Commonwealth is okay. So Star Commonwealth is Hannah Neal Center for Children, where I was at a residential treatment facility. So I got out of prison and I was like, hey, I went there and I didn't like what happened to me. And this is my idea. This is what I want to do. What I want to do is I want to get former foster youth recognized as a cohort within the prison system, and I want to get guest speakers to go around to the prison system for foster care awareness. Foster care awareness is key to inmates that are being paroled, right? And if this all works out, there could be reentry programs that could be funnel a whole bunch of stuff like housing and work and food, just for the simple fact that pick a market. I say tilapia. Right? Google how much tilapia is imported to the United States, right? Man, if you have enough former foster youth groups that are in prisons around the country, you can take over a market, whatever market you want, because you're going to have the workers. And if you offer them a place to stay, like shipping containers at the fish farm, you get out and you say, hey, or they get out and you say, hey, what do you need to be self-sufficient? And you work out a plan with them, with a caseworker that's on site. Right? And you say, okay, 25,000. Well, you're guaranteed you get that. We're going to help you get that. That's the corporate parent that should be there, not someone that says, okay, well, you don't want to abide by HUD rules. We're going to just let you go for the rest of your life. That's what happens. And why do they want to why do they want to leave HUD? Because they're not allowed to smoke pot, but everybody else in the building does. They're not allowed to do this or drink or have friends over at the house, but everybody else can, and they're not allowed because they came from foster care. They're not even allowed to get their license at 16. They're not even allowed to be on social media because they are afraid that they're going to find people like me that's going to tell them what's up. You know what I mean? Like the truth on what's really going on out there. Like your mom and dad really love you. They want you back. Like they're being told that, hey, your mom, that's the reason why your mom's not coming and seeing you. Your mom's not going to be there, man. Because she doesn't want they don't want you anymore. What? I'm helping a girl down in Texas right now. I do advocacy work for free. I help people. You know, I know the game. You know, I've had two DFPS workers removed totally from the building. I've had the supervisor totally removed from the building, relocated. I've had both gals recuse themselves from the case after 5 minutes of talking to him on the phone. What's going on in that case? It's crazy. It is really crazy, and that's not the only story. That's not the only case that's like that. I'm hearing more and more. I can't keep up with my Facebook page. I can't. You got moms on there, dads on there, pleading for me to help them. Help me, please. Help me, please. Help me, please. I can only do so much. If I had a family fund, I'd have 5 civil attorneys right now on payroll, on hold. I would have my board review the cases to say, okay, this one. No, not this one. This one's, I don't like this one, but we can do these here. Have some cases, and have them on detainer. And how would I do it? Just the same way the state does. You go to one of these law schools, you get a professor on your side, you get in there and you talk about the foster care to prison pipeline and what's really going on, and you get students that are interested in making a change, right? And you say, I want you, do you want me? Do you want us? And they say yes. That's what the state does. And that's why foster youth, when they turn 21, they cannot find an attorney that will help them because they've already worked for the state before, and it's a conflict of interest. And the state knows that. The state knows it. You damn near have to go out of state to get someone to represent you because someone's already worked for the state. And it's sad. It's sad. And a lot of foster youth don't know. Here's another part of a nonprofit that I would love. I would like a secure website, right? Where foster youth can just go on there and just have a diary. Just have a diary. And our lawyers will look at that with their permission after so many months and decide how much neglect and how much loss or how much personal injury is actually there, and go after that. That's what needs to happen. Because if it's documented in there, that's documentation. Hey, they can't do anything about that. That's a free will thing. That if they go on there and make that documentation, say, well, today this happened. Well, today this happened. Well, today this happened. And there's documentation. We can have our attorneys with their permission go in there and review those cases and be like, oh yeah, yep, 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 yep. And hold these people accountable. That's what needs to happen. Honestly. With the family fund, absolutely. Why not? Why not? I know people watching this right now probably like, man, that's a good idea, man. I'd do it. I'd donate to a family fund that helps families get their kids back. Absolutely. How many attorneys you guys got? Yeah, absolutely. You know, what and I've seen so many people on TikTok, man, go at each other's throat for no reason. Moms and dads just thinking that they're going to be the next one to take the system down. Man, it's bigger than you. It's bigger than you. I'm sorry to tell you, but it's bigger than you. You know, it takes a collaborative of people. It takes a whole bunch of people to do this. It's just not one person. One person's just not going to do it. I can name some names on here, but I hate even going on my Facebook pages because everybody's beefing. Oh, such and such is passing this bill. No, they're not. Yes, they are. No, they're not. Yes, they are. No, they're going in here. They're going there. Man, listen. Stop. Take a breath. Who cares? Do you. Do what you feel is right. You know what I mean? Don't hate somebody because they're trying. Don't spread all this hate and anger for what? Look at the facts. What are the facts? What's the corruption? We're not just going to solve it on TikTok. We're not going to solve it on Facebook. You got to get the proof. Then you got to get the pudding, and then you go after them. But they have qualified immunity. Then why are you doing it? Have you ever heard of an ethics board? You know what I mean? Have you ever heard of the licensing commission? The people that give them the license, once that's gone, guess what? They don't have that. They're eating ramen noodles and peanut butter. Sorry. And that's what these social workers down in Texas are doing right now. Salty after their license got pulled. Because if you're violating ethics, man, that licensing board ain't on that. They're going to pull that license. And a lot of people don't know. You don't go after the agency. You go after the license, man. Their license is the best thing to do.
I get what you're saying, but it's like, when a lot of these advocates out there are pushing bills that don't exist. They're taking donations from desperate parents and telling them that, I'm going to have a meeting with Congress. And there's no meeting with Congress. Or they say, I'm an advocate, when really they lost their kids for doing drugs with their kids, or they lost their kids for letting their boyfriend sexually abuse their daughter. And then they turn around and say, just pay me to take my course and I'll teach you how to do everything. But meanwhile, they don't even have their own kids. So I think it makes me sick. When you said before, like, who cares what this one's doing? I think you should care, because when you try to help people and you try to advocate, and then you have these other people who are making a mockery out of advocacy, it just ruins everybody else's credibility and your credibility when you have these people who are making a joke out of it. But bottom line, you are right that it's bigger than us. It's a huge multi-billion-dollar industry that is very complex, and it's not going to change unless they get rid of these funding incentives. That's what it is. It's money. If you stop paying them to take kids away from parents, they're not going to take kids away from parents anymore. It's that simple. And so I want to thank you again for all of your insight and sharing everything with us and opening up about stuff, even if it's hard to talk about. And I appreciate you.
I love talking about it. It's just emotional. That's all.
Yeah, no, I appreciate you being open.
It's sad for me.
Yeah, and you've been through a lot and stuff, and it's good that you're giving back to the community by helping other people and offering to help people and stuff. So, would you say if people want to talk to you, should they reach out to you on Facebook, or what's their best way to contact you if somebody wants to?
By email. You can reach me at. You want to post it, or you want me to say it, or what do you want? I don't know how.
You can say it, and I'll drop it in the description too.
Okay. I can be found on TikTok on Project Moving Forward, or email. It's advocate.pmf@gmail. I did have you can find out a little bit about my program. It's projectmovingforward.org. but it's not connected to my email, so don't push contact on there because it won't go to me. I don't know where it goes. I tried to send an email like, hey, who's this go to? And there's no response. But there's a little bit about me, a little bit about my about who I am, and if you want to connect, just connect with me like that. It's the best way.
All right. Well, thank you again so much. And, best of luck with all of your upcoming projects and everything you're working
Hopefully,
on. And
I want a nonprofit.
yeah,
I want a board. I need a board.
hopefully we'll see that nonprofit starting soon. And maybe we can have you back for an update to talk about some of those good things you're doing in the
Hopefully.
future.
Hopefully, yes, absolutely. Thank you for having me. Thanks, the guests for listening. I hope there's a billion views. I do because this is needed. It's very much needed. It's coming from someone that I've been through it. And a lot of people don't. A lot of people don't. They don't wake up and know what they want to be when they grow up. I did in prison. And thank God. Like I was like, man, you know what? That's what I want to. I want to be that when I grow up. But I was already grown, so a lot of people are just forced into the jobs that they don't want. But foster care in prison is all I know. So I'm all about policy. I'm all about getting them. You know what I mean? It's and their handbook.
Yeah, exactly. Well,
All
thank
right,
you
thank you.
again,
I
and
appreciate you.
no problem. Take care.
Yep. All right, you too.